White people are obsessed with capitalism. I swear, they won't shut up about it. White people's entire identity is wrapped up in capitalism and private property like a security blanket that they refuse to let go of, even when it actively hurts them. They treat wealth accumulation like it's a moral good, defend billionaires who exploit them, and prioritize property over human lives. While many cultures throughout history have seen land, wealth, and resources as communal or at least socially managed, white societies took greed and hoarding to new extremes. White Europeans didn't just believe in private property, they justified stealing it from everyone else. The doctrine of discovery in 1493 gave white Christians the right to claim land that wasn't theirs, basically legalizing global land theft. The Enclosure Acts in England between the 16 and 1800s forced peasants off of communal land so white elites could privatize everything. The U.S. Homestead Act of 1862 gave white settlers millions of acres of stolen indigenous land for free, while indigenous people were slaughtered for resisting. White people went across the world saying, "This is mine," while ignoring the people already living there. Australia, stolen. South Africa, stolen. India, the Americas, the Caribbean, colonized and looted. Meanwhile, indigenous and African cultures had long-standing communal land management systems, until white people imposed artificial property rights. White people obsess over land and property because their entire history is built on taking it from others. White Americans, in particular, will vote against their own interests to protect capitalism. Working-class white people constantly vote for politicians who cut their wages, gut their healthcare, and raise their taxes, all to own the libs. White conservatives hate welfare, even though white people make up the largest group of welfare recipients. They scream about socialism, but then demand bailouts for their farms, businesses, and banks. They worship billionaires who exploit them. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Donald Trump are treated like gods, even though they exploit workers and hoard wealth. White people will defend CEOs making 500 times their workers' salary while complaining about poor people having iPhones. Meanwhile, other cultures focus on mutual aid, cooperative economies, and community wealth building, instead of extreme individualism. White people's obsession with capitalism is literally killing them and everyone else, and yet they defend it at all costs. White Americans would rather let people die than question property rights. Homelessness is at record levels, yet there are more empty houses than unhoused people. White landlords raise rents while crying about how hard it is to own property and keep up with inflation. Squatters are treated worse than corporate landlords who buy entire neighborhoods just to leave them empty. The police exist mainly to protect white people's obsession with private property. Cops will kill someone over a stolen candy bar, but let billionaires commit tax fraud daily. During protests, white conservatives scream about property damage instead of caring about police brutality. White settlers justified genocide by saying indigenous people didn't properly use their land, as if that excused stealing it. White people's fetishization of private property is one of the most morally bankrupt aspects of their culture. And everywhere white people have gone, they've imposed capitalism, usually through violence. White Europeans destroyed self-sustaining economies in Africa, Asia, and the Americas to force people into dependence on capitalism. Colonialism drained resources from non-white nations while white elites got rich. The U.S. has overthrown dozens of democratically elected leaders in Latin America and Africa just to keep global capitalism running. Even today, white-led corporations exploit the global south. White CEOs profit off of child labor in the Congo, sweatshops in Bangladesh, and land grabs in Brazil. White countries control global financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, trapping developing nations in debt. When non-white countries try socialist or cooperative economic models, white governments call it a threat to democracy. White capitalism never actually promotes free markets. It enforces global white dominance. White people have convinced themselves that making money without producing anything is normal. Stock markets, hedge funds, real estate speculation, white people love getting rich without actually working. They created the concept of middlemen and consultants who contribute nothing but get paid millions. Crypto and NFTs, white finance bros made up fake assets just to scam each other. Meanwhile, actual productive labor is undervalued. Teachers, nurses, and factory workers get scraps, while white finance bros make billions moving numbers on a screen. Gig economy jobs like Uber and DoorDash are modern day sharecropping, yet white libertarians praise them as entrepreneurship. White people's version of capitalism isn't about producing wealth. It's about hoarding, gatekeeping, and profiting off of other people's labor. White capitalists also know they're losing control, which is why they're getting desperate. Global capitalism is crumbling, and white elites are terrified of wealth redistribution. They're gutting workers' rights, crushing unions, and inflating the housing market to keep their grip on power. They push AI and automation not for progress, but to eliminate jobs and keep people poor. White conservatives would rather destroy society than let go of capitalism. They'd rather die of medical debt than support universal health care. They'd rather see climate change burn the planet than regulate corporations. They'd rather cling to their failing white-dominated capitalism than admit that other economic systems might work better. White people's obsession with capitalism and private property is so deep, they'd rather burn the world than give up control. The obsession isn't just irrational, it's also destroying their society. Cope.